So pregnancy and the brain. This is something that I feel pretty strongly about. I think I told a lot of you that I have 5 children, and I chose a different doctor each time that I had children just for different reasons. But it was very interesting to me that on one child I was very poor, so I didn't have good health care because I was very young. I had him very young age, and kind of young single mom. But then the other 4, I had the good health insurance, the PPO, and I went to the top of the line doctors and so on and so forth. And not one of them, not one, ever sat down and says, now this is what you need to do to ensure that your baby is healthy during pregnancy. Basically, I just got the same old thing like, okay, we want you to take your vitamins. You should only gain about a pound a week, and just be careful with what you do. Nobody ever said like, okay, this is what you need to do for optimum baby brain development. Should you be stimulating the baby's brain? Should you read to the baby? What kind of food should you eat? They would just say healthy food. That's all I would ever get. So this is why I'm going to talk to you about this, okay? So anything that interferes with neuronal development can have a major impact on the child. So I want to recommend to you if you think that you're pregnant, not to take any form of medication, and to be really careful about what types of chemicals you expose yourself to. I don't know if a lot of you know, but that Retin-A, you're not supposed to take that Retin-A. It's like this face thing that a lot of women will put on for anti-aging and for anti-acne. That's supposed to be bad for the baby. Exposing yourself to certain chemicals and smells can be bad. You want to be really careful, because I don't think, this is what I was trying to say before, is I don't think doctors really push enough to really instill enough in us that this is the brain that you're giving your baby for life. And the baby's born with basically all the neurons it's ever going to have. And so all you have throughout life is just basically, what are you going to do with those neurons? Are you going to grow them? Or are you going to let them die? But basically the form of the brain, the basic what they have, is all given to them from pregnancy. That is a huge deal. The rate of neuron growth early pregnancy is 250,000 neurons per minute. So we're going to go over some of the big ones, but I'm just trying to get you to understand some of the really bad ones. Then I'll get back to health and nutrition. Okay, so fetal alcohol syndrome is the #1 cause. Here it is, leading known cause of mental retardation and birth defects. There should be, a sentence right here a little word right here that says leading known preventable cause of mental retardation and birth defects. So, it's amazing to me. I was in the dentist office, I would say about 2 months ago, and they were advocating on TV that it was okay to drink a glass of wine every day with pregnancy. That makes me very nervous. Now, you might want to do your research, and in fact, I encourage you to do all the research that you can. But, I wouldn't take any alcohol whatsoever during development, because look at this right here, a brain with this baby with fetal alcohol syndrome. We know what alcohol does. We learned it last chapter, is that it decreases the sodium across all the cells. And so do you really want to expose the baby to any alcohol during pregnancy? You'll see I have another picture. Their eyes are usually misshapen. They have decreased alertness, hyperactivity, mental retardation, motor problems, heart defect, abnormal facial features. This is something that, can't ever be corrected. Here we go. Basically what you're seeing with alcohol, and this is why I caution you against drinking any alcohol whatsoever. But here's another thing is, some of you are nervous because you say, oh no, I'm pregnant, and I drank a margarita in the beginning of my pregnancy, what's going to happen? Or I was drinking. The way drugs affect the baby during pregnancy, it's such a mystery to us. I've had students in my class that will say, Amy, I smoked heroin all through all 7 of my pregnancies, and there was never any problem. Or, Amy, I did crack cocaine throughout my whole pregnancy, and there was never any problem. So I've heard stories like that, but I've also heard stories of, I did cocaine once or twice, and my baby came out addicted. Or, oh, they found heroin in my system when I had my baby and my baby was taken away from me. Or, oh, I was a smoker, and unfortunately, this is a really sad true story, is she was a smoker during pregnancy, and last semester, one of my students, she lost her baby to sudden infant death syndrome. That is associated with smoking because it contributes to weak lung development. So anyway, it's just I'm just going over this to give you some information and just for you to think about so you can be aware, because knowledge is just what you need. Okay, it also reduces the amount of neuronal activity and the amount of neurotropins received. So here, as you can see, the corpus callosum is here, but look, it's not there. And then look at all the wrinkling here, which would indicate more surface area. Here, look, there's not as much wrinkling. That's the difference there, okay? You don't have to know these statistics, so don't start writing madly. This is just something I wanted to share with you. 1 in every 5 pregnant women uses alcohol and/or other drugs. Alcohol produces the most serious neurobehavioral effects when compared to other drugs, including heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. Isn't that amazing? That alcohol, if you asked me which drug should I definitely not use during pregnancy, I'm going to say alcohol. 3 times as many women used alcohol during pregnancy than illegal drugs. This is a child with fetal alcohol syndrome here.
Welcome to Science 360, the Developing Brain. I'm Casey Rawson from Moorhead Planetarium and Science Center. The human brain is an amazing organ that not only controls our physical senses, basic body functions, and movement, but also stores our memories and processes our emotions and thoughts. Many of the questions about just how the brain does these things are still unanswered, but scientists are learning more about the brain every day. In this program, we'll explore how a baby's brain develops during pregnancy and how some scientists are studying the developing brain and things that can harm it. Let's begin by studying 2 people whose brains developed differently while their mothers were still pregnant with them. This picture combines half of one person's head with half of another person's. You may notice that the person on the left has a smaller head, smaller eyes, a shorter upturned nose, less of a groove between the nose and mouth, and thinner lips with less shape than the person on the right. If we could look at the brains of these 2 people, we would see differences there as well, differences that are related to the different facial features. The brain of the person on the left is smaller overall. In addition, there is one particular structure in the brain on the left that is much smaller than the same structure in the brain on the right. This structure is known as the corpus callosum. It kind of looks like a cross-section of the top of a mushroom. The corpus callosum is the part that allows the 2 sides, or hemispheres, of the brain to talk to each other. As you might imagine, having a corpus callosum that is too small can cause serious communication problems within the brain. To understand why these brains are different, first we need to understand how people and their brains develop. A developing baby grows inside the mother in a place called the uterus. A baby starts out as a single cell. A cell is the building block of all living things. The cell divides and divides some more, until eventually a fully formed human baby is created. In the first 8 weeks, the developing baby is called an embryo. In those weeks, the embryo begins to develop recognizable features, such as eyes, nose, and fingers. After 8 weeks and until it's born, the baby continues to develop and is called a fetus. After spending about 9 months inside its mother, the baby is ready to be born. Years later, it becomes a fully functional adult that has 100 trillion cells. Remember, we are interested in the brain, so let's consider at what point in the pregnancy we begin to see parts of the brain. By the time the embryo is in the middle of its 3rd week, as in this picture, the part that will become the brain is beginning to be clear. At this point, the embryo is still very small. How small? Smaller than a tennis ball, smaller than a golf ball, even smaller than a penny. In fact, an embryo in the 3rd week would fit inside the 0 on this penny. This early in the pregnancy, most women won't even know that they're pregnant. Here's what the embryo looks like during the following week. That's the 4th week at about 26 days after conception. You're looking at the outside of the embryo. The brain is forming inside. You see the head and where the mouth will be. At 26 days, human brain cells are developing at the rate of 250,000 every minute. At this point in the pregnancy, many women still won't know they're pregnant. Brain cells continue to divide in the later weeks of pregnancy, and connections are made between them until birth and beyond. The surface area of the brain increases, resulting in the formation of wrinkles and ridges. By the time of birth, the normal brain will look like this model, although it will continue to grow and develop throughout childhood and adolescence. But things can go wrong. Genetic or environmental factors can cause problems. When this happens, babies can be born with physical or mental limitations, known as birth defects. Now that we know how the human brain normally develops, we can talk about the external or environmental factors that can sometimes cause that development to go wrong. During pregnancy, the mother and baby are connected so that the baby can get the nutrients and oxygen it needs to grow. Because of this close connection, almost everything the mother is exposed to in her environment reaches the developing baby too. What the mother breathes, eats, and drinks also enters the baby. In some cases, these external or environmental factors may harm the baby. One of the most dangerous substances for a developing baby is alcohol. For example, wine, hard liquor, or beer. When a pregnant woman drinks alcohol, the alcohol passes from the mother into the developing baby. This alcohol can damage the developing baby's brain as well as other tissues and organs. About 1 in 10 women drink alcohol while they are pregnant. When humans are born with brain abnormalities caused by alcohol, the condition is known as fetal alcohol syndrome, or FAS. When people have FAS, they have trouble learning, solving problems, or understanding cause and effect and long-term consequences. For example, someone with FAS may not understand that if they cheat on a test, they may be suspended from school. Remember, the brain begins to develop in the 3rd week of pregnancy, before many women even know they're pregnant. Alcohol can cause brain damage at any stage of development in pregnancy. The kinds and severity of brain defects vary depending on when the alcohol exposure occurs. Very frequently, when there is brain damage from alcohol, the baby's face can look perfectly normal. Regardless of the severity of the disease, however, fetal alcohol syndrome is irreversible, and its effects will last a lifetime. Now, let's look at how scientists are using animal models to model how alcohol can affect the developing brain. Scientists are interested in studying the causes of conditions like fetal alcohol syndrome so they can be prevented in the future. Scientists can learn how alcohol affects human embryos and fetuses by studying animals, such as fish, sheep, chickens, or mice. Can you tell which of these is the human embryo? Although they come from 3 different animals, these embryos look almost alike because many organisms share a similar pattern of development. One organism that is often used when studying human conditions is the mouse. Because mouse embryos and human embryos form in very similar ways, we are confident that what we can learn from studying mice can be applied to humans. Mice develop over a much shorter period of time, however, and are born after only 20 days. Scientists can use mice to study external factors that some pregnant women are exposed to, such as alcohol. Scientists at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill have discovered that when pregnant mice are given high doses of alcohol, the baby mice are more likely to be born with birth defects that affect the face and the brain. These are images of the brains of 3 mice. The one on the far right is normal. The ones on the left and in the middle are not. Notice how small the front part of the brain is. These brains come from mice whose mothers were given alcohol during pregnancy. These same abnormalities that appear in mice can also appear in human babies who have been exposed to alcohol before birth. Smaller head size, changes in facial features, differences in brain structures, learning disabilities. Now you know that all of these can be caused by introducing alcohol to the developing brain.